There is an area of downtown Minneapolis representing what some might call an open secret. You may already live in this area or work in this area. You may have met someone for a coffee or dropped off your dog at doggy daycare, cheered on the Minnesota Twins at Target Field, or shopped at the famous Minneapolis Farmers Market. You may have done all of these things and yet not known you were a part of what many are beginning to call the North Loop Root District. A place where art, food, and culture are upholding diverse community and accelerating equitable and inclusive economic development.
The work that the Root District has developed, this meaningful experience, both now as well as we move into the future, is hopefully going to have something that resonates not only on the local scene, but hopefully globally, that begins to send a message, not that's necessarily trendy, but something that's transformational and near and dear to not only the individuals that exist within this space, but individuals that visit, individuals that see particular parallels back to their communities, but ultimately generating a space that says, wow, this is something transformative that's happening.
There's so many ideas that are coming to influence just this one site, but people are bringing experiences from all over the city.
To have something super creative that is really relating to the roots of this place and really relating to who we are in Minneapolis and showing that to the world.
We looked all over the city of Minneapolis, and there were certain areas that we really were drawn to. Those areas had a mix of industrial uses, some neighborhood in close proximity, and had buildings that were in the right size and right space. Glenwood Corridor we absolutely loved. To the west we have an amazing park and we have an amazing neighborhood. To the east we have downtown. And so we felt like being right in the urban core and being right next to a farmer's market was just an amazing spot to grow our organization and build our vision.
Some consider the Root District to be the most important redevelopment area in the city of Minneapolis. Why? Because of the unique combination of the Minneapolis Farmers Market, underutilized land use, and the new construction of the Royalston Farmers Market Light Rail Station, the first of 16 LRT stations extending from Target Field Station in downtown Minneapolis to the Southwest Metro. Big questions remain about this area, though. How will the Root District be redeveloped? Who will benefit from it being redeveloped? And who may get left out if it is not developed with equitable outcomes in mind?
We are an independent 501c3 nonprofit serving approximately 23,000 adults, children, and families every year across Minneapolis and St. Paul. In Minneapolis and in the Root District, we are home to Higher Ground Minneapolis, which is a campus of 3 apartment buildings. There we have over 250 single adult units that are permanent supportive housing. A real concerning outcome for me and why we are so involved in the Root District work is that the Higher Ground Minneapolis campus be cut off from the Root District, and that we will be on the edge, on the outside. And it is critical in that we be a part of what is welcoming this growing community and investment.
Bringing in as many different perspectives as possible and giving them all a voice in how they envision the future of a district like this. This is a very different way to do planning than the way it typically happens, which is it's done sort of top down from planning experts. And this is very much a critique of that expert model and a recognition that actually the more diverse perspectives you get, the better the outcomes.
This is really a volunteer-led effort. This is an effort that requires a lot of different voices and a lot of different points of views for us to ultimately get where we need to get. We had one meeting where it was just conversations about what did George Floyd's murder, what was the impact that it had on you personally?
The Root District concept came out of ultimately a year or multi-year listening project and set of convenings with stakeholders and community members. And it was just asking a lot of questions. Additionally, we want to make sure that we're paying attention to, what the history has been of this place and how we imagine roots, they're in the ground. And so I think it's something that we can look at what roots have been laid, and then we can also think about what seeds are we planting and what kind of roots are we going to be growing, so that in the future we have better outcomes maybe than we've achieved in the past.
In its origins, the Root District was traditional, ancestral, and contemporary lands of indigenous people. The Dakota lived here for many thousands of years, and today this land still holds great historical, spiritual, and personal significance for its original stewards. In about 1872, as European settlers began arriving in waves and developing the city of Minneapolis, the Root District area was first platted as 60 acres divided into 280 lots by prominent real estate developers who named it the Oak Lake Park neighborhood. The neighborhood had parks, artificial ponds, and winding tree-lined streets designed for white middle-class families to live in Victorian homes. Oak Lake Park was close to downtown, though, with noisy rail lines nearby and a good deal of industrial buildings very close in proximity. By the 1920s, the large homes had been subdivided into apartments, with Jewish and black families moving to the neighborhood, many of whom were prevented from buying homes in other neighborhoods because of discriminatory racial covenants and financial redlining that was prevalent across the city at that time. In 1936, the city of Minneapolis demolished the western half of Oak Lake Park to make way for a new city market that would eventually become the Minneapolis Farmers Market. Sadly, the Minneapolis Planning Commission framed this demolishment as a slum clearance project, and the northern edge of the Root District, originally named 6th and Lyndale, was cleared as well to build Highway 55. One researcher named this moment as a moment of concentrated attack against the black community in particular, because 6th and Lyndale was a busy and flourishing intersection for the black community in the late 1920s, offering an important outlet for enjoyment and commerce. Over the next 60 years, the city of Minneapolis would form different housing authorities and leverage federal funding for multiple iterations of housing, with the largest and most modern neighborhood being 900 units of housing to the northwest called Heritage Park. Today, advocates for the NūLoop Root District seek to bring further repair to the painful history of displacement through holistic community engagement with several important near neighborhoods, alongside urban renewal, new transit investment, and lifting up historic institutions such as the Minneapolis Farmers Market.
The feel of the district, of the Root District, I think will continue to remain anchored with the farmers market. So how can we evolve and how can we change as new development happens and comes in? And when we talk about development and going forward, there's a lot of people who are not farmers and not connected with the ground, with what they produce. Let's keep this connection not only to the community of people who live here or will potentially live here, but connected to the community of the people who bring the produce to the market, who have their hands in the soil. Let's keep those connections. That would be a shame to lose that.
I'm curious about what's happening here because it's right next door to the neighborhood that I grew up in, Harrison neighborhood. I'm a different person now than I was when I was first doing community engagement. Then I was really green, and to me it was just like, just get information out. Here's what's happening. What I realized during that process is that people, they'll see the information, but if they can't see themselves as a part of it, then they won't have any interest. So in those conversations, how do we help people, how do we empower people to see themselves, as a part of this project? Yeah, I think empowerment is that should be the defining term when we talk about, engagement.
How do we create spaces that are multifunctional? How do we create spaces that offer the ability to have different communities of people be a part of that? And how do we engage with other communities who may not have access to resources that want to be part of that development, and not just the growth of it, but actual ownership of it?
The Southwest LRT project will bring a really large transit investment here to this area through the Farmers Market Royalston Station area. And so with that investment in transit, it will also increase access to jobs, to educational opportunities, to cultural assets, shops and restaurants for folks who live in this area, but also for folks who come from all across the metro area. It is so imperative to have the community voice in the implementation process, and to make sure that those folks who are in and around the station area really tell us what their priorities are and what their needs are.
This gives us an opportunity to learn from some of the mistakes that have been made over the past number of decades on these master planning efforts, where maybe they didn't take an inclusive and kind of diverse approach from the get-go, and really sitting down and understanding what everyone's goals are. Everyone needs to acknowledge that their goal might be different from the person sitting next to them, but we all share a common goal of making it a great place.
When I am out in the community, I do like to ask people, what do you think about this project? And I've tabled at the farmers market, and I like to hear what people have to say about what's coming next, right? Once the light rail is open. And one of the words that people use all the time is potential in this area.
This area will redevelop, right? But it may be more single use and not as creative. And so the idea of a creative district, a creative farmers market district, creative route district, that can't be contrived, that can't be prescribed, that has to occur through the businesses and the people who provide that creativity.
And so to me, this could be the great experimental place for the city to really say, okay, if we're going to achieve our 2040 goals, we're going to have to be open to doing things differently. I think the Route District is this opportunity to sort of show what 21st century equitable, sustainable, affordable development looks like, that enables people to achieve their economic goals as well as our environmental goals and our equity goals.
The Route District is the next big thing. It's the next important thing. Maybe it's the most important thing. It will require courageous leadership from the public sector, but it's also going to require private sector leaders and organizations to step forward, all focused on the same thing, creating a vibrant route district, one that is centered on culture, centered on the farmers market, centered on housing, and ultimately centered on business. If we can do those things, we will have success. And certainly Target Field will be a beneficiary of that, but more importantly, the city of Minneapolis, the state of Minnesota will be a beneficiary, and our community will be stronger.
You have to get above and beyond personal interests and really begin to focus on how we are going to allow people that traditionally did not have a voice at the table, get those individuals at the table. And sometimes it means bringing the table to them. And in order to do that, we have to get outside of our comfort zones.
I think it's just critical for everyone involved to listen, learn, show up, ask questions, engage everyone who's here right now to inspire that future that's coming.
Let's encourage everybody to spend time in this neighborhood, in this district, experience it, and think about how you can contribute to it.
Empowerment. Get out of comfort zones, authentic creativity, experimentation. Alongside the incredible farmers market, many of these ideas are already underway in the Route District with unique activations such as the Black Market, organized by George Shannon, a community ambassador, entrepreneur, and event curator. Murals by Juxtaposition Arts, a youth-oriented nonprofit visual arts center in North Minneapolis. Artisan convenings at the Holden Room of Hennepin Made, and many more. Now that you know about the Route District, you are invited to co-create a shared future. What do you want to speak into reality? What do you have to say? What do you want to contribute?